Hello, today we are going to start making a sculpture that is kind of in the Chihuly glass blowing style, but without using glass. So our end result is going to be something like this, okay? Kind of shaped Chihuly-ish. We're going to try to paint it in a Chihuly style. So Dale Chihuly is a glass blower and one of the most famous glass blowers in the world. But we don't have glass blowing materials here in the art room, so we're going to attempt something a little bit different that looks kind of like his stuff. So we're going to start out with just a hanger, and we are going to straighten out with pliers the hook part and then kind of bend and stretch and maneuver into a design that looks interesting, okay, from different angles. So you have to think about how that pantyhose, because we're going to use pantyhose, might stretch over the top of it. That's what gives it this look, okay? Then we're going to use a block of wood and drill a hole in it that's the size of the hanger, and we're going to stick it in there, and we're going to use JB Weld to stick it down there, and that's what that's going to look like right there, okay? And once we get that stuck down, it takes probably about 8 hours until we're ready to stretch the pantyhose over it, but we're just using basic knee-high pantyhose, and they come in these little containers. They're about 89 cents. They don't cost very much, maybe 99 cents now because it's been a while since I bought some. But we're going to just you're just going to put your fingers like this, okay, so you get it all the way to the end, and once this is inside of the wood, you're going to stretch it over the top. Now, when I look at this, I haven't stuck it in there yet, but I can see that it doesn't have a lot of shape to it, so I might open it up a little bit more. I might widen it in different places, maybe not cross it over right here. I want to have an interesting shape. So you can see this one has some interesting sharp edges, and it twists around, and just looking at it from different positions looks really interesting, and that's what you're trying to achieve. And so I did that with this one, and to me it almost looks like a wave, or it could look like a leaf falling down. I really like the shape of it. And once I stretched that over, I had to stretch it over the wood, and then on the bottom I took just a little hot glue gun and I twisted the pantyhose up so that it was nice and snug, and then I went around that twist of the pantyhose. I put a dollop of hot glue on the corners because when this sits down, we don't want it to rock all over the place, and this big blob is going to cause it to rock. So we need to put some on the corners too. Then when it cools a little bit, you can just take a regular pair of scissors and just clip off your twisted up pantyhose so that that's all gone and you're ready to paint. So we're going to base coat the pantyhose in flat white ceiling paint. So you can just get flat white ceiling paint at Walmart. It's way cheap. You don't have to go out and get any special art materials that cost a bunch of money, and you can end up having a really neat project. So we're going to get that painted, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've got the first coat on the project, and I just used, like I said, flat white paint. You can see that there are areas that still need to be covered because you don't want any of those little tiny holes in there. You want it completely solid. So we'll do one more coat on there. Okay, this is part 3 of the sculpture that's kind of Chihuly-like, and I have my sculpture all painted. It's much more stiff with the ceiling white on it, so it's going to give you a little bit more stability there. And yesterday I tested out a paint pour with pouring medium, and what I'm using is the True Flow pouring medium. And at first, I had said before that this kind of looked like a wave, but the more I painted it, the more I thought it looked like a flame. So even though I tested out a pour kind of like watercolors and stuff, and you can see how beautiful and shiny it is, I just did it on a piece of cardboard just to test out what it would be like. I decided to go ahead and do kind of a flame-like look. So what I did was I used these colors, okay? I'm just using Anita's Craft Acrylic, and I'm pouring them into containers, about half of a tablespoon of paint to a half of cup of pouring medium. And then I'm just using a tongue depressor to stir it up. So I have orange, red, black, yellow, and white pouring medium. And this, I didn't add paint to it because I know it will turn out white anyway. The black isn't pure black. It's kind of a deep charcoal because no matter how much black I added, it seemed like it just lightened up with the pouring medium. So what I did was I laid out newspaper on the floor. I have a block of wood just in case I need to support this, because I know all of the tutorials say to support your painting on a block. But since this is a sculpture and we're trying something a little bit different, I thought maybe if I had to, I would pour it on a piece of wax paper and just tip it up, and hopefully it would come off of the wax paper. So we're just testing this out to see how it'll work. And I'm going to put gloves on. I had gloves on before, but every time I touched my styrofoam cups, they wanted to stick to me because of the gloves. So I had to take them off to do the paint mixing. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pour this side, and then I'm going to just start rolling it around and see if it will roll to the other side. I want to kind of let it dry on one side a little bit so that it will set up and not like drip off. So this is going to kind of be a test. I've never done this type of thing on the sculpture before. I usually just hand paint it, but I thought it would make it a really nice shiny glass-like appearance, which is what we're trying to do with the Chihuly. Okay, so I'm going to start with my orange, and I'm just going to pour it down like that, and pour my red, and maybe I'll keep that down towards the bottom a little bit. Everything I'm keeping on the newspaper so that it doesn't get all over the floor, because this will dry to a shiny hard surface. And I'm just going to add some there. And I can add as much as I need because this should pour pretty good. And by the way, I did get myself a little cup of water too, just in case this didn't pour very easily, but this seems to be pouring pretty good. And I kind of like how the tongue depressors help this. So maybe a little bit of black up here. Yeah, just a splash. Okay, so we're just going to try this and see what happens with it. And I'm going to just let it drip all over. I might need to add more. It seemed to work better when I did the pour yesterday. Yesterday I dumped everything together into one container, so I might just do that while I'm just going to pour this together and just see if that does something different, because they talk about dump pours and you pour everything all into one container and then you pour it all out. So let's just see what that does. Give it a little bit of a stir, and I'm just going to start pouring. Ooh boy, look at that. It's just interesting. It's not going to be like flame-like like I thought, but it's kind of interesting looking. And of course it's dripping all over the place. But it's kind of neat. I kind of like it. Something totally different. Maybe a little bit of yellow right there. Oops, it's not pouring off of my thing. So this is acting a lot different than yesterday. Yesterday it hung on a little bit easier. It's not separating like I thought it would. So I'm going to spread it a little bit. Like yesterday I kind of spread it around with my that's weird looking. Kind of like it though. It's kind of psychedelic looking. Ooh, wow. Dripping it across there kind of looks neat. And of course I'm getting my fingers in it, but it's still kind of cool looking. One of the things that I was told in a tutorial yesterday is to know when to stop. So you got to be careful with how much you're moving it around. And I may need to do a second pour tomorrow. I don't know what it'll look like, just because I'm trying to hang on to it in different places so it doesn't rotate around. Even though I have it glued with the JB Weld, it's acting like it's going to twist around on me, and maybe it's because the paint is so heavy over here. I'm going to get some more orange. I don't like it. It's way different than brushing it. And yeah, it doesn't look like a flame anymore, but it's kind of cool looking anyway. So I'm just going to kind of spread that around on the bottom here. And I'm letting it drip because it's dripping on the paper anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I'm just using my gloved fingers to kind of spread it to the edges here. And I'm going to put my block here and just let it kind of sit on my block and drip. Ooh. It's heavy on one side, it's not going to sit on the block. So I'm going to just sit it right down in the paint. I really don't care because it's on wax paper, so that's okay. Okay, so let's see. I still have a little bit on the top to do. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my yellow and pour that on the top. Hopefully I'm not making it too top heavy because it is a little bit tilted in that way. It's kind of neat looking. I want some on the bottom too. Interesting. It's very psychedelic looking. And it's dripping off of here. Now, you probably won't want these drips, so, you know, when you get it, when it kind of stops dripping a little bit, kind of give it a wipe. And I'm going to give it a little bit more orange coming down here. So I'm glad I mixed as much as I did. I didn't think I was going to need that much, but it turns out I am needing that much. I am wasting quite a bit, but you have to be able to cover the whole thing, so you may need to have a little bit extra. Ooh, weird. Okay, I think that I noticed that my red is not really very red. It's kind of pinkish, so that's taking away from that flame look. So I'm just going to kind of move some of this. It's oozing down and stuff, but I still kind of like, I especially like how this bottom part looks. It's kind of really neat looking. Okay, let's see. I do have some, oh, doesn't look like I have any open spots. Looks like it's all pretty well covered. So, yeah. I might just get rid of the gloves for a sec. And what I recommend doing is just pulling them inside out, and then you don't have to worry about getting it on your hands. But I might just pour some of my red right on it. Okay, and then if I need to, use my tongue depressor to manipulate where that red is. I like that. That way it's turning out a little bit more red. We'll see if that works at all as far as the finished product. I'm getting a lot of really pink streaks down this way, but I still really kind of like, especially here, kind of like how that is stretching out. And I know that other people get get like cells and things like that. I'm going to scoop some of this paint up and just tap it where I'm seeing that I need some paint. And since this is wax paper that I put it on, it should peel right away from the wax paper with no problem. I like this black. I'm just going to kind of slather it around the bottom here. Okay, so I'm going to maybe mess around with this a little bit more, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm going to let it dry a little bit, and then I'll come back and I'll see what I'm going to do. Maybe add something to it, maybe not. But I will definitely show you the finished product. Okay, so now we are in the final stage of our sculpture, our Chihuly-like sculpture, and this is how it turned out. It's still super shiny, so it's very glass-like. I really, really like how it turned out, and I am super glad that I didn't really know very much about pouring mediums, because if I would have done it the way you normally do it on a painting, it would have all run off because it would have been a lot thinner. So the way that I did it actually worked out really nicely, because it stayed on there, and putting it on the wax paper worked really well. It peeled off pretty easily this morning. And what I ended up doing was gluing a piece of felt on the bottom so it stays pretty stable. The only thing that I didn't like how that turned out very much was this part where the green and the yellow kind of, the black and the yellow mixed together, and it made it a little bit green. But I don't mind it. It looks really interesting, and see it from a distance here. You can see that it really just looks kind of cool. So that's what we're going to be doing for our Chihuly-like sculpture.